because I feel like in this moment, U.S. fans might be feeling down. But if you look at everybody else in the region, they're feeling worse because they went home in a group phase. I'm talking about Canada. I'm talking about Mexico. I'm talking about Costa Rica. So in this kind of never-ending conversation of who is the giant of CONCACAF, the most important measuring stick is the World Cup. Has the U.S., after seemingly at least reaching Mexico with the Nations League and the Gold Cup and qualifying success as well, has it overtaken Mexico now as the true giant of CONCACAF?
So this is what us Smurfs are doing now. We're arguing over who's taller.
Exactly. This World Cup, it does feel like that, yeah.
Well, just in general, because CONCACAF, I think you can see it by the numbers left in
But
World
you got to
Cup.
compare yourself to your neighbors, right?
Fair. In that sense, the U.S. men's national team in this moment are the kings of CONCACAF. I don't even think it's debatable.
Right.
Won the Nations League, CONCACAF Nations League, won the Gold Cup, last man standing, only team to make it to the knockout round in a World Cup. Most players in Europe, highest profile players.
Youngest pool of
players.
So
highest ceiling.
So that's where I want to go next, because I feel like the giant of CONCACAF can change.
In the 2000s, just as much history as any other nation in CONCACAF.
I feel like it can change week to week almost sometimes, right? Like when U.S. beat Mexico in the Nations League final and then Gold Cup, we said, okay, U.S. is on top. And then Canada finishes first in qualifying, and we kind of even threw them into the mix. Do you feel like the U.S. now has established themselves as such a giant of CONCACAF that the gap to everybody else, or the gap to specifically Mexico, is enough that it'll last the next 4 years? Or do you think Mexico, with all the problems that you talked about last time, because I think that's the real competition we're still talking about here, with all due respect to Canada, do you think Mexico is anywhere near being able to regain the edge that we would have said they had not all that long ago, probably 2019 pre-pandemic?
Absolutely, and I think because of the U.S. and their success, Mexico would hit that restart button quick, would refresh things. El Mundial tiene una nueva novia, right? They see what's going on with the U.S. right now. They don't want to let it happen. They've got just as much resource as the U.S. when it comes to football and their culture, when it comes to the federation. If there is a change, a shift in mentality, they can do things just as well as the U.S. men's national team.
Do you believe there will be,
even the
though?
Canadian structure, even Canada.
Right, but specifically Mexico, do you believe that they will, and do you really believe that this is that motivation?
Not in the recent. Maybe 3 years from now they're going into the World Cup and you're thinking, hey, something changed.
We did see a statement.
But from now until that 3.5, almost fourth year, because it's going to be 3.5 until the World Cup, they don't have the U20 World Cup, and they don't have the U23 tournament, which is the Olympic Games. So that's going to be something that will hamper them because they don't have World Cup qualifying.
Yeah.
So where do you introduce this new generation? They also don't have players under 23 in this World Cup, which means they won't have a U26 player with World Cup experience in 2026. They are behind the 8 ball. But in terms of a footballing country, in terms of technical ability and how they produce players in Liga MX, because that's what they have to rely on, they're a factory of production when it comes to players of a certain age. They just don't graduate them.
Yeah, and they are not, they're a factory, but a factory that doesn't sell any of its product is also the point, right? And Liga MX came out with a statement after Mexico crashes out saying, we are committed to the success of the national team.
We will analyze was a statement.
And is that them saying, hey, we're going to start selling players abroad even when it may not be for the most money? Because that's really that's the sacrifice that the Mexican clubs need to make. They know they can turn to Rayados, Tigres, Chivas, and sell for big money, bigger money than they can sell to some team in Holland or some team in Belgium or some team even in the lower tiers of Spain, Germany.
There are a few organizations or groups, I should say, within Mexican football that want to change things. But until the majority want to, it's going to be the same thing. And producer Beto whispered in my ear right now the amount of foreign players in Liga MX, and people often take issue with that. What do you mean foreign players? That should increase the value. Well, if you look at the Premier League, it does increase the value for the domestic player because these foreign players of a certain weight, a certain category, they have to have a certain percentage to get a work permit to play in the Premier League. That's not the case with Liga MX. You can play in any national team in the world, regardless of how good or bad that national team is, and have a spot there. That's not the case in the UK. In the UK, you have to have a certain weight, you have a certain category to increase the benefit.
Resume. Exactly.
Certain resume, certain CV.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.